Welcome, everyone. I am really glad that we could bring together this group. This is a pretty special conversation because this group sits right at the intersection of the clinical care, research collaboration, and also community. Before we dive in, let's start simply by telling everybody about who we are. So I am Attaya Suvannasankha. I'm at Indiana University. I've been here as part of myeloma program for 20 years now, and I have been the co-chair of the myeloma working group at the Big Ten Cancer Research Consortium. I am just very fortunate to get to work with all of the fabulous you on the panel today. Could each of you please take a moment to introduce yourself and your role at your institution?
Hi, thanks very much for the invitation to be one of the guests today on this inaugural podcast. My name is Natalie Callander. I'm at the University of Wisconsin, and very excited to have one of our first trials opening in myeloma through the Big Ten that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, and very excited to be here today.
Hi, I'm Tanya Wildes. I'm an associate professor of medicine at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. I've been a myeloma doc for about 15 years now and delighted to be here.
I'm Hira Shaikh, one of the plasma cell malignancies physicians here at University of Iowa, and I'm so happy to be part of this group, especially among these amazing women.
Thank you so much. So this is truly a powerhouse group. As physicians and researchers caring for patients with multiple myeloma, we're all driven by the same goal, to move the field forward in meaningful ways. How does this collaboration across the Big Ten Cancer Centers actually create value for you, for your team, and also, most importantly, for your patients? I'm going to start with Natalie, who actually got me into working with this fabulous group. Natalie introduced me to the role of the co-chair of the group, and really, she is such a role model as a co-chair, and I'm trying to follow that footstep. Natalie, how did you get involved? What does Big Ten mean to you?
I've been here at the University of Wisconsin for actually 20 years, and one of the things that attracted me when the Big Ten was being put together was several aspects. I think the first is that I grew up on the East Coast. I did training on the West Coast. I think there has been this bias sometimes to think that all of the science is on one coast or another, and I have learned very clearly that we have just fabulous people here working in the Midwest. And so when this consortium opportunity came around, I thought it was really a very important thing to support. And obviously, through your guidance, Attaya and Hira and Tanya, I think that we've really put together a very strong effort, and one that I hope that continues. And not only are people doing amazing things at their own institutions, but we're hoping that we have more power in numbers and can accomplish more. And then, of course, the second thing, even from the very beginning, there's been a very nice representation of women in this group, not just in the myeloma portion, but in other parts of the Big Ten Consortium, which was another big attraction.
That's fabulous. Well, I'm going to just open it up to anybody. So, we've always been on this working group call. I take such positive energy from everybody, but also I confess that sometimes it is hard to actually put together ideas that translate from that original seed to a successful implementation of clinical trials. And we've been talking about, well, is that the only way we can work together? What does science really mean? Can we advance science even without needing to get patients on clinical trial? So Hira, you're doing a lot with genomic database. Tell us about how you approach Big Ten and what does this opportunity mean to you?
I think it has an excellent opportunity, just getting to know everyone. I'm still an early career physician, so just getting to learn both directly and indirectly from all of you and the rest of the members of the Big Ten myeloma group has been an amazing opportunity. At times, when I'm thinking about projects, it really helps to speak out loud and things start making sense together sometimes. And also big groups can sometimes feel overwhelming. So having a small group to bounce the ideas where everybody is very collaborative and you can speak out loud without having the thought about being judged or, not knowing enough as a lot of us think about. So I think that has been an excellent opportunity. Currently, I'm working with two amazing physicians who are right here on a project looking at using mass spectrometry to monitor the patients in multiple myeloma and use it as a bone marrow sparing strategy for some of them. So mass spectrometry is a peripheral blood sample, and that has shown amazing concordance with the bone marrow MRD, which is minimal residual disease. And we are trying to get our patients to the deepest response possible. However, not everyone loves to have multiple bone marrow biopsies over their course of disease, leave alone having it every couple months or year. And lack of information is not always good enough. So having another possible strategy to monitor these patients and give them comfort about knowing where they're standing with their disease could be very useful. So that is a place where Attaya and Tanya have helped me a lot, and I genuinely value everyone's expertise. One other thing I've loved about this group, especially the women here, is whenever I reach out, there's been no limitation of advice or getting back to me despite their busy schedule. I reached out a few times to Dr. Callander as well, and I think that was very useful. So I genuinely appreciate this.
Tanya, your fearlessness actually just inspires us in so many different ways. Tell us, how do you build Big Ten relationship? How does it affect your career? And also give us ideas about how the group could do better.
I first found the Big Ten when I moved to the University of Nebraska coming up on 4 years ago. And that was actually my first opportunity to meet Dr. Suvannasankha at ASH at one of the Big Ten lunches. And fast forward several years, wouldn't have imagined that the Big Ten would actually have given me one of the best friends of my life, and that we went through some amazing things that we'll talk about a little bit later when we talk about our Peru trek. But when I think about Big Ten, it's just with it being a small and nimble group. And then as I'm starting to think about new concepts, so my passion, my research area of interest is in treating the most frail patients, ones who often are not enrolled on clinical trials and for whom there's so many questions we could answer in a data-driven way if we thought about clinical trials a little bit more differently. Because how I approach the world is a little bit different, it's actually really helpful to have a group that I know they know me. And I think it allows me to feel comfortable sharing my ideas, even if they're a little bit less mainstream. Living longer isn't always an older adult's top priority. We need to balance that with their toxicity. And that's heresy in some circles to not be so focused just on prolonging outcomes that researchers are prioritized. And as far as moving forward, I think I'm just looking forward to the momentum and seeing the momentum and energy we've been building over these past few years start to come to fruition as we get studies open, and just really excited to eventually have a podium presentation, which is introduced as Dr. Callander presenting on behalf of the Big Ten Cancer Consortium. I cannot wait for that day.
No, really, that's incredible, right? This is such a group that speaks loudly for a supportive environment. There are just no ideas that cannot be discussed. And also, ideas don't have to actually get flushed and already with protocol coming to the meeting, you can just toss an idea out there. Or when we're having some portal open for new drug and these are our strategic goals, we have had relationship with those people. You've had different conversations. And oftentimes I always feel that if we're one investigator having a conversation, it's one voice. It could be a lot of people behind us from our institution, but yet it's one place. And when we're coming together, we're leaning into the power of togetherness. And really people who've paved the way are people who've been very successful leaders in clinical trial like Natalie. If the leader thinks that this is the way to do it, we have a whole lot more people behind us to really create a successful program. And I'm also excited about us asking questions on clinical trials that were just not about can something work, but also why it works and or why it isn't working. And this is really where I think correlative science come in. This may be my bias, but I get to treat myeloma in mice some days when I don't get to treat people. The question that can go from bench to bedside and back is going to be what we can also do as we are trying to move the field forward. So I'm excited that this group will also ask that additional questions that may not be seemingly most appealing right away. But when there are a lot of treatments coming at us, people would ask, right, so what's the right one for me? And I'm hoping to be able to sort of say, we're just like looking at a group of people that are irrelevant to the person in front of us, that we have a little bit more data to guide that approach. So I really appreciate what everyone brings into the table and also what our institutions support us as investigators. Natalie, could you tell us a little bit about support that the Big Ten Cancer Center leaders have put together to create this consortium? Because you've been with us for the longest time and seeing it sort of coming together. Yeah. What did that look like?
Sometimes it's very difficult in our bigger groups, our bigger organizations, to feel like you do have the room to talk about ideas without feeling that they're going to be maybe challenged in a way that is not constructive, or maybe it just seems too intimidating to bring them up. And I think we've tried very hard to make this group one where people do feel comfortable bringing up their ideas. And so I think that's been the foundation to say that we really want to hear from everybody. Secondly, what the Big Ten is trying to do is, as many investigators know, if you have a concept and then you are looking to open this concept, this trial at more than one institution, you're going to have some sort of clinical trial support. And that can be very hard to come by in terms of, figuring out the logistics and getting the protocol written, writing the forms, and, having the negotiations. And that's something that Big Ten has been very helpful for our group in doing. Certainly for me personally, is having individual experts. This is your relative expert. Here's your forms expert. Here's your legal expert. And they really do help get you through that process, so that instead of an ITT that you might be able to open at only your single institution and have a few patients, you really have the opportunity to work with some amazing people at world-class institutions.
I agree. I actually appreciate that when trial is sort of coming through, when concept is being presented, there's also site feasibility survey, so we all can actually look at what we have, what we think we will need in the near future, and see whether we are the right partners, just so that we don't have to open trials to sites that will not enroll, because we all want to put our effort in and have a good return of investment that actually moves the program forward. So absolutely. I also feel that the thing that I know the least is, how much do things cost? How many visits someone needs? What to include in all of those budget things. And really, it's been so helpful.
I think that you're exactly right, Attaya, that, we as individual investigators, if you've ever negotiated an ITT on your own, it's hard, because it's hard to know exactly, how much of a budget you're looking at, how to negotiate all of this. And ultimately, if any of you, and I know you all have, had the experience of trying to get an investigator-initiated trial open, we know that there is power in numbers, and we know that that helps us get a concept through if we can go to, say, a company, and we are bringing to the table 10 plus institutions already. And so you're not going to have to shop around for other sites. We're going to bring that to you. And I think that really helps our position as well.
Absolutely. So, I think we're all doing different things, focus on different aspects. Tanya mentioned about frailty and frail elderly. It hits me that oftentimes I think about patients on clinical trials, including trials that are done and presented, published. And I think if I would ever open that trial at my institution, I don't have the right patient population for that. Even though it looks from eligibility criteria as, there should be many. I oftentimes see that the need of our patients, those that live far from centers, all of us in the Midwest are facing significant number of those patients. And I like to also speak for the kind of trial that keep in mind patients' life as a whole, but also make sure that the trials are accessible to them. And I am hoping that Big Ten is really just the right place to also tap into those patient populations that might not always want to travel to big centers and have frequent trips and so on, that we're actually making trials that also focus on patients' quality of life. And that's what we've been talking about a lot more recently. We have put together a database also of people getting treatments that are otherwise standard of care, but put together real-world information that hopefully shine light onto who we treat, how far they live from our center, what is the long-term compliance rate and long-term complications, rate of drop-off, and so on. And I'm hoping that even though that's not therapeutic clinical trial, that it actually adds some value to highlight the kind of population that we treat and the struggles they have as well. What are other wish lists you might have, maybe for your own program or for the field of myeloma that you would like to see maybe in this upcoming few years that we should be thinking about? Natalie, can I pick your brain?
It's been amazing to work in the myeloma field for a long time, just in terms of what we can help patients achieve. You know, the concept of somebody not only obtaining remission, but staying in remission for years at a time used to be unknown. And so that has been amazing. I think the challenge right now is, particularly with immunotherapies, T-cell redirecting therapies, is to try to know the who, what, where, when, and how exactly. And I think, to both Hira's research and Tanya's area of research, we know that myeloma affects a wide range of people. We know that 40% of patients are 75 years or older when they are diagnosed, and we want them to have access to these amazing treatments. But I think we're trying to figure out, there probably are ways to limit exposure that's better for them in the long run and not keep people on continuous therapy. Sequencing, that's the term about, do we do A first before B or B before A? I think those are huge questions that need to be solved right now in myeloma. And then we benefit here in the U.S. from access to most of the new therapies out there, but much of the world does not. And I think one of our missions, is if there are therapies that are not particularly helpful, and particularly if they come with a big price tag, how do you figure out how to extend more access to myeloma treatments around the world?
Absolutely agree with that sentiment. Tanya and Hira?
I would say the area that I'm most interested in now is, because we have so much choice, how do we help triangulate on the efficacy of the treatment, the toxicity, and then triangulate with the patient's preferences. And we do that in the clinic to the best of our ability, but eliciting those patient preferences can be very hard, because often you're asking a patient a question they've never thought about. How do you balance out these pros and cons? And I am by no means a huge advocate of technology. I'm a late adopter of all things, but I do think there are opportunities for us to kind of help leverage technology, sending patients questionnaires in advance to help them start to think through what are their priorities. So when we're faced with an older adult who we have the opportunity to either give them a quadruplet with a drug that could cause them peripheral neuropathy versus a triplet that may not control their myeloma as longer, but they may have a better toxicity profile. How do we help that individual? How do we guide them to the treatments that's the right fit for them is kind of where I want to take the field.
Excellent ideas. And I was not even in that time where, we could not think about all these excellent therapies and getting patients, in remission for multiple years. So catching up late, but still.
You're making us feel old, Hira.
I know, but you come at the perfect time, Hira. This is when myeloma doctor is very cool.
Yeah, so my wisdom is probably not as deep, but I think something I'm really excited about with all the amazing therapies that we have is, being able to stop treatment in some patients. And I think that is something where we in myeloma world are really behind compared to a lot of other cancers. It partly is because of the way myeloma behaves for majority of the patients, and we have not been able to think about cure before now, and we are probably a little far from that. But even being able to stop therapy in some patients, and individualizing that based on their response, based on their goals of care, like Dr. Wildes was mentioning, I think that could be huge. This is something that really picks on me when I see the patient the first time and I tell them you're going to be on therapy forever. When we have such great therapies now and the patients are going to be in the deepest response possible of therapy at times for many years, why can't we still think about it? So that is something I know a lot of people are already working on, and a lot of trials are undergoing in that space. But that is something I would really hope to be able to see in the next couple of years, 5 years, 10 years. And I think this would be a huge thing for our patients to be even able to contemplate that option.
I agree. I think we come a long way so that now we're no longer calling multiple myeloma all one and the same, but, we're able to really dig pretty deep into really what's happening within the tumor cells, how they might interact with the tumor microenvironment. I think we're really at an era where we're not going to need to only look at the cancer cells, but also the neighboring cells, and really just put all of those mathematical equations together to sort of say, you have myeloma program A. And therefore, this is what maybe your journey as a group may look like, rather than sort of, it's going to go from 4 drugs to actually to this, to that, and so on. But also, as much as I'm excited about all of these new treatments that we have, what intrigues me the most is the fact that if you look at people who die from myeloma in the past 3, 4, 5 years, right, since the novel therapies have come through, majority of them actually didn't have access to any of these treatments, right? They sort of die without having access to the newest of things. So it gets me to think about implementation, because it's not whether a drug works anymore. It's about, can you be sure that the thing that works actually get to the people who need them? I thought about, those long wait from CAR-T when we first had that approved, and now we're a lot better. But still, we're not meeting people who didn't come to our centers and how to collaborate well with the community. So, because we sit in the center of a variety of centers that have already been working with us, how to actually empower the referring teams and actually have patients being able to also continue part of their journey locally. But also, I'm with you entirely about people living longer. One of the things that I have spent my lab career working on is bone damage. I just feel that myeloma patients not only need to be able to live in remission, maybe off therapy, but we need to also focus on the healing department. And I'm focusing on bone damage, but of course there are a whole lot of other areas, including secondary malignancy, musculoskeletal health. I think we're starting to think about myeloma patients' longevity and what they might need in the long term. Just remind me of, when we treated Hodgkin's disease patients, we're actually now not worried about whether they're going to respond to treatment, because of course they would. And we're thinking about, but 20 years from now, what is it going to look like? I'm hoping that we get to talk about that with our patients more. But I'm going to shift gear a little bit, my friends, because this is such an incredible community that will not just work together on one thing, but we go way beyond the science, because there are just many ways that we can impact our society in terms of community building. So I want to shift gear to Tanya. Dr. Wildes, you had the vision of bringing women in myeloma field together, and it has clearly taken off. Can you tell us how that started and why there was such a need for the group like this?
Sure. So when I was in my early career, when I would run into a clinical question about caring for multiple myeloma patients, I had my go-to people that I would text, and it wasn't necessarily at my institution. And because very naturally there was a group of people that I had met through research collaborations and that sort of thing that you just had a natural affinity for and felt comfortable approaching them with a question. And that's not a disparagement of the people locally, but when you have shared lived experiences with people, when they convey to you that they are open, it's vulnerable to go to someone and ask a question and say, hey, I really don't know what to do in this setting. And so it feels most comfortable when you know that the person answering you is going to meet you where you are. In parallel with that, had lost my main coping mechanism for this life we have. I used to be a runner. That was my time away for myself, to clear my head, to think through. I had great research ideas when that runner's high would hit. And because of my knee issues, wasn't able to do that. Fast forward a couple of years, I heard of one of our myeloma colleagues who was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro for raising funds for a myeloma organization. And I was like, that is the kind of goal in front of me I need to get out of bed in the morning, to get on the treadmill or the stepper or do some strength training that had been lacking for me. And when I spoke with the friend who did this, she said that what made it the most amazing experience was not just the achievement of climbing a mountain, but the people that she was with. And I said, I need this in my life, and I want to do it with women in myeloma. And fast forward, emailed, people that I had just met through various myeloma, Dr. Suvannasankha among them. This was in 2023, actually. And 8 of us were in. We needed to come up with a destination that we could reach in relatively short order, because none of us wanted to be gone from clinic for more than a week. Because if you are gone for clinic for more than a week, it is chaos, and it doesn't serve our patients well. Even if you've got great coverage, they rely on us being there. We know their whole story. We have been walking beside them for years, and when changes need to happen, we don't have the luxury of waiting several weeks for us to come back from some grand adventure. So we selected Peru, and the 8 of us flew to Peru and spent a couple of days acclimating, and it was like a middle school sleepover for 4 days. It was so much fun. We went to Machu Picchu together, and we hadn't even done the actual hard work yet. And we were saying, when's our next one? What are we doing next? It was very difficult. We trekked over 30 miles above 14,000 feet. And I will tell you, genetically, I am not wired to be at high altitude. I did not acclimate well, and the experience was just phenomenal. I think the most beautiful thing was that each of us hit a moment of feeling like, I cannot do this. I cannot take another step. And at that moment, another one of us would just happen to be at a moment of strength when we could counterbalance each other. And it was just the most phenomenal bonding experience. Dr. Suvannasankha and I were roommates for the whole time. We dealt with the insomnia that sleeping over 15,000 feet brings you. It was just a truly remarkable experience. And then we come back to real life. We head back to patient care. We have created these friendships that stay. In the course of training for that, because we all had to train up our cardiovascular fitness and so forth, we had a WhatsApp group. And this group, which initially the plan was just, hey, remind each other to get out and put your shoes on and go get some miles in. But it turned into this amazing place of, hey, but I have this difficult case to talk about. Or, oh my gosh, I missed my son's school event. I can't believe I failed like that. And we just realized how similar our shared lived experiences were, and that the challenge, we just got each other in a way that people that were friends or family won't necessarily understand.
I was just one of the lucky ones that got to join the trip. And as Tanya said, it was really life-changing. But also what got me through some of the tough stuff, sometimes I would be thinking that we're built to do hard things. And we tell our patients that they're going to endure hard things and we'll be there with them. But as much as I felt that I would be there for them, I personally didn't have a physical struggle. So when I was up there, it was hard. And we look at each other and we just keep going. That was what I took away ever so much. And now when I face hard things, I thought about all of the hard things we have overcome together, all of the hard things we told our patients that they will potentially see the light around the corner.
So we all recovered from our hypoxia, and the next year, 2025, we plan to basically do the same. We were planning to do a Grand Canyon rim to rim. Dr. Suvannasankha came up with the idea for that. We were all heavy into training, and then those tragic forest fires forced us to cancel that trip. So undeterred, we said, okay, let's plan the next one then. And the idea came to us that because travel is so time consuming and to give more people the opportunity to participate, what if we could couple adventures like this with the International Myeloma Society meeting, because so many of us travel to them. And the 2026 meeting will be held in Glasgow, Scotland towards the end of September. And we found that the West Highland Way is very nearby. And we decided to open it up, and it was through snowball. In fact, just kind of one person telling the next, saying, hey, this sounds amazing, let's do this. It has transformed. We now have 27 women physicians who will be participating in this 60-kilometer trek over 5 days. And we have set a giant goal to raise money for a myeloma advocacy, research, and education organization called Health Tree Foundation. The goal of fundraising for Health Tree is to help support all of the services that they provide to our patients: education, understanding of what's going on with their disease. And Health Tree also supports grassroots research, allowing pragmatic, decentralized clinical trials conducted through their assistance. In addition, we are earmarking a proportion of the funds to provide a scholarship for an individual from a low middle income country or a background that may make it a challenge for them to travel to the International Myeloma Society meeting, giving them the resources to attend, to network, to hear about the latest research, and engage with the field. So we're really proud of that endeavor and looking forward to hitting our big goal. If individuals are interested in what we're doing, I've created an Instagram account. We are the Women of Myeloma, but it's spelled with 2 M's because multiple myeloma is always abbreviated MM. So it's WOMMENOFMYELOMA. So that's a way we'll be posting, obviously, links to our fundraising, but updates as we go. We have been told that one of the greatest perils we will face along the West Highland Way is not altitude this time, but midges, which are apparently tiny, vicious, biting insects. So there will be peril along the way.
I'm hoping that the 27 of us, and maybe many more in the future, will get to also experience this very impactful experience together. But also, there are people around the globe, right, that face challenges in life, myeloma included. There are many women who are healthcare providers, physicians, researchers who are trying to treat their patients in the very best ways with such limited resource. So I'm excited that one of this year's missions is going to hopefully also support women leaders from other less fortunate places, less accessible places to actually be able to come join us at scientific meetings. I, through my own program at IU, have an opportunity to have been involved with a program called Empath, which is a research teaching collaborative program in Kenya. So I've been in Kenya twice, and every time, what never ceases to amaze me is if you just have a passion to do something for more than just yourself, there's so much that we can do together. Seeing that some of those physicians have had chance, even if it's once every 5 years, to just come to scientific meeting, what they bring back to their program and what that becomes shared education and shared drive, they teach their trainees. Lots and lots of them. So I think the impact is just kind of like a rippling effect. So excited about what we're going to get to do together this year. Tanya, I always appreciate things that's done with the heart and the hands. I couldn't help but recognizing the tapestry behind you on your wall. And I think it's the one and only. Could you tell us about it?
Sure. It is a quilt inspired by the University of Nebraska logo. It looks like a shield with an N embedded in it. And I've used red, white, and black with the Nebraska colors. But if you look very closely, some of the squares are actually red blood cells on a black background. I use quilting as one of my escapes, my creative outlets, and actually as part of our fundraising, as I'm making quilts, I'm planning to actually open an Etsy site so you can see my creative outlet.
As you can tell, we just hang out with people who are more than just one aspect that we get to know about them, although we get to know each other through our work. We're all different colors of the rainbow, and I'm just hoping that for many more shades than anything, the more diverse ideas we can all bring in. And I just appreciate that our group has such authenticity. How Tanya solved a problem is probably very different comparing to how I would solve the problem. But I only know one way, my way, right? Which is probably not always the right way to be able to sort of say, but before I jump in, let me just check in with a few of my friends who I trust how they might approach a problem, I think help preventing many heartaches and headaches. So I'm hoping that we get to build this journey together. And while we're talking about myeloma, I'm sure that this kind of conversation is happening with every other working groups as well. I want to have Hira share what she's excited about. And then also, as a woman physician, right, treating patients, doing research, but also wearing many other hats in our life, what has been the rewarding experience? What has been the challenge, if she might share?
I was so glad when Dr. Wildes reached out to me. I think it was 2 years ago, and I could not join Peru because I just had my son, who was, 2 months old, 1 month old, something like that. I think it's a different struggle for women and women physicians than it is for male physicians in some ways. I think our families rely on us differently, or at least we think that our families rely on us differently. And you need someone to, understand you from that angle and come to the same level where you are. And for a very long time, I did not have that community, or I should say, tribe. I used to hear from other people, I have this group and this is amazing. I can vent sometimes, take opinions about everything related to life and work. And I did not really have that until a couple years ago when Dr. Wildes reached out about this track. And I could not go on the track, but I stayed connected. And this group has been amazing from every aspect. I met two of my mentors through this group. So definitely research, sometimes just asking things related to personal life or work-related life that you might not always be comfortable asking other people or even might not think about who to ask, to be honest, many times. So I think this has been really an all-rounder opportunity and support system that I did not even know I needed until I actually found it. And I think for all women in myeloma, Dr. Wildes will find you. So it's not going to be hard to be part of this group. But if you are not yet, feel free to reach out, and everybody is very welcoming. We would love to have a wider group and have more people to support and also have more support system.
That is a perfect wrap up, really, because I think women in the myeloma group, women in the Big Ten or the Big Ten collaborators as a whole, the thread that I hear all through is collaboration, support, kindness. Sometimes I feel that science can be the most competitive, brutal environment to try to get the grant funded, get the clinical trial opened. We all do hard things, but it doesn't have to be competing with each other. We're stronger as a team. So I want to end on a more personal note that really none of us get here alone, and we're shaped by people in our life, our mentors, patients, colleagues, and people around us. And we're just grateful that we're part of this amazing group. We hope to grow and expand. And I'm hoping that for anyone listening, we'll make sure that we'll share ways to work with us through the Big Ten, as well as ways to support women in myeloma. I would like to thank everyone for joining us today.